All right, this week we learned that General Motors ordered more than 500,000 new ignition switches in December 2013, but that was 2 months before a recall was issued for that same part.
And at that time, Mary Barra was head of global product development and purchasing for GM and had already been tapped as the next CEO. But she says she didn't know about the switch problem until later that month. Now, here to talk about all of this and the latest developments, attorney Ven Johnson. And next to him, John McElroy of Autoline Detroit and Automotive Insight. He's covered the Detroit auto industry for decades.
All right, I'm going to start with John. Listen, it looks pretty bad for General Motors. This isn't standard operating procedure, is it?
No, it isn't. Doesn't look good for GM whatsoever. You know, this has just been a cascade of chaos coming out of the corporation. That they would have ordered 500,000 ignition switches in December when Mary was the head of purchasing and claiming that she didn't know it until the end of January. Doesn't look good for GM.
I mean, it's a big issue when you hear that, especially during that 2-month time period where one person died, 28 people injured. How many lives have to be put at risk before we start to get the information that we really need?
You're never going to get all the information, and that's what's sad. And one of the things we have to think about is all of this started, guys, back in 2004. This is the end of 2014. This has been going on for a decade, and we're just now beginning to peel back the layers of the onion, finding how bad this problem really is.
General Motors has fessed up. They've said, okay, we've done something wrong. They have a committee now reviewing all the lawsuits. They're going to make money available to the victims. It doesn't, General Motors. It's good enough, isn't it?
No, it is, unless it's your mom or your dad or your wife or your child. No, it's not good enough. And again, what we need to do is get beyond the internal committees. Let's get government doing what government needs to do. Where's NHTSA? Let's get the federal investigations going. Let's find out what they've been finding out in lawsuits involving these deaths, guys, because it's just the beginning.
Well, again, I want to mention this. I mean, we've heard Mary Barra. She said she did not know. She was the head of purchasing at that point. In your opinion, could she not know? Could this somehow slip by her? Or
well, hold on. You know, there's a lot of people who didn't know a lot of things that are going on. Ven just mentioned NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They had all the data. They didn't do anything about it. Let's look at this Takata airbag fiasco that's going on right now. Honda's involved in it. In fact, there's about half a dozen different car companies. They didn't know that what was going on in all of this. So to just single out General Motors and Mary Barra and all this, I think you got to really stand back and look what's going on in the industry. What about the person who got
the email? Shouldn't they immediately said, okay, we have a big problem. We need to get this out and get it out now?
They should have. They should have done that 10 years ago. But look, everything has been caught in this bureaucratic morass, and it's not just at GM that this is happening.
It didn't Delphi? Don't they bear some responsibility? I mean, General Motors can say, hey, listen, I mean, Delphi, Delphi had some problems too, didn't they, John?
Delphi notified General Motors that the ignition switches did not meet GM's own specs.
Whoops.
And GM gave them the go-ahead. I don't see how you can blame Delphi on this.
Couldn't that hurt GM even more, though? Because Delphi's being very upfront with all of this.
Well, as John pointed out, what should have happened, once Delphi got this information, GM did nothing. Delphi should have done more than what they did. And one of the things that I think they should have done is exactly what John said. There's a duty to notify NHTSA. This is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, guys. It's the feds. And what's gone on here is there's been too much of this back and forth chummy stuff between industry and manufacturers. It's time that the feds step up and start doing their job.
Didn't General Motors already pay a fine? It was $35 million earlier this year. What was that for?
Oh, Charlie, look, this is not over by any means. You know, we saw Toyota get hit by the Department of Justice with a $1.5 billion fine.
Right.
General Motors is probably going to get hit by a bigger fine than that. There's all kinds of litigation that's going to take place. They've established their own committee with Ken Feinberg to hand out millions upon millions of dollars, probably hundreds of millions, maybe billions before it's over. This is not done by any stretch.
What about criminal charges? I mean, should someone go to jail for this?
That's pretty tough. And you're talking about intent usually when you're talking about criminal trials. So what you're going to hear is, well, yeah, they had a memo or they had information that this could happen, but did that engineer stuck somewhere in in a little TV type studio?
Watch your light.
Come on, Charlie, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Did they intentionally try to kill somebody? Let me look at not a suit like Charlie's, but I mean, what can they do with that information? Did they intend to kill Mr. Smith, who was down in Texas when he got in an accident? Pretty tough stretch.
Wow.
My thought here, though, is that even though the Congress is investigating, the NHTSA is investigating, a lot of this information is actually coming back from lawyers, because lawyers.
Thank you, Charlie.
I get
Thank
that.
you. Which, by the way,
it.
the auto industry, I hope that John would admit this, one of the major safety pushes in this entire discussion, Ford Pinto explosion gas tanks, seat belts, airbags. Excuse us, it's what we have done on behalf of our clients that's pushing this envelope, and has been for well over a quarter of a
pushed it way too hard, because we don't see any of this litigation in any other country in the world. This whole thing that Toyota faced in sudden unintended acceleration did not happen in one other country in the world.
That's
it's
so
only
sad.
in the United States that this is happening. So yeah. Do we need to protect consumers? We sure do, but we've gone way beyond the pale.
A lot of these cases that were settled before all of this recall stuff, because General Motors put in their settlement agreements confidentiality, non-disclosure. That probably should account for something, and maybe get away with that. But a lot of defendants do
necessary
that,
evil, Charlie. When you represent a family, and all of a sudden after 5 years of litigation and the uncertainty of trial, and you're negotiating a $1 million, $2 million, $3 million settlement, those are the huge ones, as you know. Most of them don't get that big. And all of a sudden they say, we'll do this only if you sign this confidentiality. My family says, yes, Ven, we're done with this. We want to put this behind us. How do I say no to that? So it's a tough issue for a lawyer and a family.
John, let's talk about public perception with people and the GM brand. How much has this whole disaster really hurt the automaker?
Not a lot, really, frankly, because in the court of public opinion, people do not like the corporation General Motors. And then they say, oh, but have you seen the new Buicks this year? And so GM's car sales are going pretty good. Wall Street loves what General Motors is doing. The stock has taken a little bit of a hit, but when you read what any of the analysts think is going to come in the next couple of years, they're very bullish on GM.
Give me an idea of profits. How much?
Profit?
This year.
Not enough. I mean, when you compare General Motors to its international...
For who?
Yeah.
How much is enough?
Because this is a very cash-intensive business. You know, General Motors is probably spending on the order of, I don't know the number off the top, $10 billion a year just to come up with new cars.
They're spending $300 million to fix this current campaign of 1.6 million vehicles, guys, in the first quarter of next year. The money's already there.
Let's not just cherry pick one little part of what GM is paying out. GM is going to pay out billions. This total bill could be $20 billion before it's all over.
But the point is it enough? Toyota paid $1.5 billion. How much? What was the Toyota profit last year? It's not that much. They can afford this.
They're going to afford it. There's no question about it. But you know, look. No corporation wants to be fined $1.5 billion. Nobody wants to be paid, paying out that kind of money. That kind of fine hurts bad.
What will it take for GM to assure people, the consumers, the customers, that something like this isn't going to happen again?
Who knows?
Can they?
Can anyone? But the fact of the matter is, I give Ms. Barrow credit for at least now stepping forward and issuing a number of campaigns. Here we've got, in the last week, guys, 3 campaigns totaling 1.6 million vehicles. Again, $100 per vehicle per fix is all we're talking about. That shows you what the sales are. They're rolling.
We've got about 30 seconds left. Wrap it up real quick. Where do we see General Motors finishing out this year and into next year?
This year is going to be a basket case financially for General Motors. Next year is still going to be painful for GM because of all this. But sales are going good, not just in the United States, but around the world. The team's doing a pretty good job of trying to handle the biggest fiasco the corporation has ever faced.
You'd take a few of these cases, wouldn't you, Ben?
Yes, sir, I sure would.
All right, well, we appreciate both of you here. Obviously, this is still going to continue to play out, and more updates to be had. Thank you, Ven, and thank you, John, for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
All right, and that's it for this edition of Let It Rip Weekend.
Fox News Sunday is next. We'll see you back here next weekend.
Thanks.